My irrational fear is people dressed up as in costume as characters from children's movies or television shows. The one incident I can really remember is, I can't remember exactly what age I was, but I was under 5, maybe 3 or 4. And my family every year goes to this this family resort in the Poconos called Woodloch Pines. And during dinner every Saturday night, traditionally someone, I don't know who it is, walks through and greets all the families while dressed as some characters, like Elmo. It was very, harmless and not even like a villain. It's not like Jafar or someone is there, But something about it, I don't know, as soon as I saw this character coming to the table, I just lost it and just started crying uncontrollably and could not handle this person coming near me. And he kept coming closer, like, I don't know, just like the furry, giant costume person coming was just awful. They'd come over and be like, what's the matter, but my mom's like, it's okay, maybe next time. And then as soon as they went away, I'd be okay, but I don't know what, I just lost control whenever these characters would come to the table.
I started this project by looking for quotes about fear as a concept that I thought would help inspire me. And there are quotes about fear everywhere. For example, Robert Louis Stevenson once said, "Keep your fears to yourself and share your courage with others." Now, all due respect to Robert Louis Stevenson, but what a crock of shit. In my mind, fears that are internalized are never addressed and never dealt with. So, with this philosophy in mind, I conceived this project. Nothing to Fear, a 5-step process to fear reimagining and reconciliation.
So my irrational fear is butterflies. It wasn't a fear of the picture, it was a fear of the actual butterfly in motion. My parents don't know where it came from. I didn't have any frightening experience as a child. I remember my parents were convinced that this was a phase and that maybe I was doing it for attention, and they figured that the best way for me to get over it was to take me to a butterfly exhibition. And they did not tell me that this is where we were going. When I showed up, I noticed the signs, but I figured my parents love me and they're not going to put me through it. But I was wrong. And so we approached the exhibition, and you could see the butterflies from the window, and just from looking at the butterflies, my heart just started pounding. And I told my parents that I didn't want to do this and I didn't want to go in. But my parents insisted, and they actually threatened me with being grounded if I didn't go through with it. In order to prevent the butterflies from coming out, there's one door, you walk in, they close the door, then you open the next one and you walk in. And when I walked in, it was, butterflies were everywhere. They were flying, they were fluttering, and I was very nervous. I started to get dizzy, and I told my dad, I'm starting to feel dizzy. And I remember him telling me, it's all in your head. And I said, yes, because my head is dizzy. And my dad said, the door's right on the other end, let's just walk through. You don't have to look, just make it through the butterfly exhibition. And what really scared me was, and I'm sure everyone's familiar with this, is the butterfly tentative wing flapping. This is when they're stationary and they do a small, slow motion flap, and it's horrifying. And that's when I fainted. I don't remember leaving the exhibition. My parents told me that I was carried out, and they thought I was absolutely crazy. So they gave me about 15 minutes to recover, at which time my parents said, let's just try one more time. And my dad said, come on, I'll hold your hand. You know what, if I have to, I'll carry you. Let's just go through it. So my dad picked me up and took me through it again. I was smart enough this time that I kept my eyes closed. And even in his arms, I started to feel dizzy once we got into the exhibition again, even though I wasn't looking at the butterflies. And then the worst thing that could have happened, happened. The butterfly came. I didn't see it coming, obviously, because my eyes were closed, but it landed on my face. And I went. And it went from bad to worse. I opened my eyes to see what had just happened. And my dad had put me down he put me down to help me clean my face. I realized that I just smushed a butterfly onto my face. It was just plastered on my face. And so I was starting to cry and to hyperventilate, and I was trying to get it off, and I was freaking out that this butterfly was dead on top of my face. And I started crying, and I just made a beeline for the exit and just ran out. And I ran right past my parents, right through the doors, out onto the street, and sat on the steps. And that was it.
So by now you're probably wondering, what the hell are those 5 steps? Well, here they are. Step 1. I found people who were willing to share with me specific incidents from their past that involved a fear that they have. Step 2. I went and actually interviewed these people.
I'm Jana.
I'm Kate Oliver Iris.
So I'm Walker Anderson the 7th.
So I'm Ori.
I met a multitude of fears, stuff that I couldn't even imagine being scared of.
Spoiled milk.
I'm afraid of moose.
And I find spiders really upsetting.
Being close to railroad tracks.
So my irrational fear is butterflies.
People dressed up as in costume as characters from children's movies or television shows.
Step 3. I then took the events from these incidents that they discussed with me and reimagined them in some way. I built props, I made animations, I had to do something so that it was the visual context of the fear had been switched. Step 4. Now I had to show the person who had this fear the new revised scene. So instead of having this original idea, the visual register that they had originally for the fear was different. And now, step 5. Somehow, I have to take all of this footage and put it together into a hopefully cohesive project. That last step's mainly for me.
So I guess my irrational fear comes from, I watched this movie that you might have heard of called 2001: A Space Odyssey, and there's this scene where and I don't even know if I'm remembering this completely correctly, but in my mind this is what happened, so if I'm wrong, sue me, but whatever. There's this astronaut on the outside of the spaceship like working on fixing something, and you know how you can't breathe in space because there's no oxygen, so he has an oxygen tank that's attached to the spaceship with this tube. And then the computer is like, fuck you, dude, and basically cuts the astronaut off, I think, and the astronaut, I just remember seeing the entirety of space, so it's just black, and then the astronaut floating away slowly with this like tiny bit of cord kind of trailing, and you know inside the suit the astronaut is like suffocating to death because it doesn't have oxygen anymore, and then we'll just be floating in space forever and ever and ever, and that's it. My fear is that this will happen to me. Don't take into consideration the fact that I will probably never be in space, but I have this fear of like that feeling of being let go from something, and then you're just falling and you see it and there's nothing you can do to get back there, and you're holding on to your breath as long as possible, but you can't forever, and then you just die, and then you're forever floating in space, and it's the loneliest, saddest thing I can think of, and the most traumatic, and I never want it to happen to me, ever, because that would be upsetting, and I would be scared. So I will never go to space because I'm too scared of it.
As I mentioned earlier, when I started developing this project, I searched for quotes about fear that I thought would be helpful for me, and I came across one that actually was. It's from Brendan Francis, who's an old Irish playwright, and he once said, "Many of our fears are tissue paper thin, and a single courageous step would carry us clear through them." And I kind of realized that he's right. Many of our fears are foolish and as thick and as strong as paper. And maybe that single courageous step is just being able to share them with someone.
Elmo is very harmless and not even like a villain. It's not like Jafar or someone is there, but
Possible, but you can't forever, and then you just die, and then you're forever floating in space, and
It's incredibly simple, but I think he might be right.
So awesome.
I don't know.